For this entire week, I am only reading thrillers. I have 3 books picked out. I'm doing this in honor of the SUMMERWEEN reading challenge, where basically every year you're encouraged to read horror or thrillers. There are a bunch of fun prompts for the challenge. I think I'm gonna be able to hit most of them, but for the most part the goal is I'm just reading some books that kind of remind me of fall. I don't know why in the middle of summer, but I am really in the mood to read thrillers. I don't normally read thrillers or horror. Part of that could have to do with the fact that I'm seeing stores already put Halloween decor up, or the fact that I've already put some of my own fall decor up, just because I love fall and I love the fall ambiance. But whatever it is, the plan is to read these 3 books this week. Starting with Not Quite Dead Yet by Holly Jackson. I'm about 1/3 of the way through this book already. I started it a couple of days ago, and it's pretty good so far. I feel like this is very much your typical murder mystery, whodunit type of book, so not completely original or unique in that sense, but it is pretty good. I feel like I am suspicious of pretty much every character in the book, which is kind of what you want out of a novel like this. But basically the premise is it starts on Halloween night and we're following Jet, who is attacked, and she survives the attack but is told that within a week she's gonna die from a brain aneurysm. So she decides during that week she's going to try to solve her own murder. This was one of the most popular thriller books of last year. I remember seeing this everywhere, so it's been on my TBR since then, and I'm finally getting to it. This one of the 3 books has been on my TBR the longest, so I felt like it was a good one to start with. I will say, Jet, our main character, she's 30, or at least like her late 20s, close to 30. I think she's actually 27. But before realizing that, it kind of read like she was a teenager. She was at the Halloween fair, she still lives with her parents, she's not working right now, and just kind of her attitude and dialogue feels a bit younger. So this is definitely young adult. It's not too scary. I don't know why I expected it to be scarier, but so far I haven't really been scared by anything in this book. Actually, there was one thing with her dog that kind of freaked me out, but I think that was just me. I can't tell if that's an important plot detail. Happens early on, but I feel like just the situation with the dog disturbed me. Not that anything horrible happened, but I just didn't like the way it was described, which maybe that was meant to make me really uncomfortable or not. We'll see. I'm gonna go keep reading this, and then we'll get to these other 2 books later in the week. I'm 2/3, maybe 3/4 of the way done with Not Quite Dead Yet. I think the murderer is gonna be who I suspected it was at the beginning. Obviously everyone was suspicious, but there was someone who I kind of thought it would make sense if it was them, but I didn't have a good reason why I thought it was that person. But now we have a motive, so who knows? There's still a good amount of the book left, even though I am nearing the end. But we'll see if I was right. I'm not going to tell you, obviously, who I thought it was, but I will tell you if I'm right or not. Other than that, I don't really know. Everyone's suspicious. It could be anyone. But honestly, a lot of these characters, they just have other troubled stuff going on. They have dark secrets, and we're kind of getting more and more of that revealed for each character. So it's kind of eliminating them as a suspect as Jet's murderer. But none of these people in this book are good people. They've all done horrible things. Also, I was reading last night, which is one of the Summerween prompts, so check that off. And another scary thing happened involving an animal. I don't know what it is about that freaks me out, but I got to that point while reading and I was like, I can't go to sleep now, I gotta keep reading. But again, just those two things in the book involving animals freaked me out. I think because it's giving Uncanny Valley and it's just a little weird having these sort of humanized traits involving animals. I don't like that. Another thing I wanted to mention about the book is we do have a very subtle romance subplot that adds a little bit of depth, another dimension to the story. In terms of other updates, I'm wearing this nice burnt orange color. I feel like this is my new favorite color. It reminds me so much of fall, and clearly this Summerween reading thrillers for a week challenge is working, because every single day I'm feeling more and more in the mood for fall. I actually was just thinking today that I really want a fall candle, and then I was like, there's no way beginning of July that Bath and Body Works is gonna be selling fall scents. But I looked it up and they have already released their 2026 fall collection, so great for me. I'm surprised that all these stores are selling all their Halloween and fall stuff so early, but I guess that means there's other people out there who also are ready for fall. And then one more exciting bookish thing. I got this package in the mail today, so we can unbox it. It says, I'm going across the river and I'm gonna save us all. I know exactly what book this is. Ooh, okay. Look how cute this is. We have a little journal, and then we have the book, The River She Became by Emily Varga. This is a new romantasy release. It just came out a couple of weeks ago, so this is the finished copy, very kindly sent to me by the publisher. And then this journal has the book's title on it as well. So cute. It says, Stolen Relic, an Ancient Crown, a Destiny Written in Magic. Oh, there's some pretty art. Look at that. So beautiful. I love when books come with art like this and using the artwork as my bookmark while reading the book. I feel like that just sets the vibe for the book so well. Wow. Underneath the dust jacket, look how pretty that is. Oh, this is beautiful. Resistance costs less than submitting, and just gorgeous florals. I'm so excited. Not a thriller, so I'm not reading it in this video, but this is a perfect fall read. So after all these thrillers, I'll probably have to get to this one next, or at least very soon after. It just came out June 30th. It's about a relic hunter searching for an ancient fae object to restore the magic to her world. She has powers and there is romance. The story also has fae. It says it's perfect for fans of The Cruel Prince and The Mummy. And it's the first book in a new duology. I was so excited when this package arrived. It's so cute. I wanted to show you guys. I had to. Everything is so, so cute. I'm very, very excited to read this book. But before I can do that, I have to finish Not Quite Dead Yet. I really don't have too much of the book left, actually. I said I was 2/3 or 3/4 done, but I'm past the 300-page mark, and there's only 400 pages, so very close. Let's finish it up. I did end up going to Bath and Body Works and I got 2 candles. I'm so excited. This bag smells so good. The first of which is pumpkin apple. I have had this candle before. It smells so good. It's just my favorite fall scent that they have. Smells kind of like cinnamony, definitely appley, kind of like those cinnamon fried apples. So good. I love this candle. Oh yeah, ground cinnamon, pumpkin, red apple. Those are exactly the things that are in this candle. They have a buy one get one free sale going on all of their candles, so that's why I got 2 of them. But I had to get the 3-wick candles. I feel like whenever I use a single wick candle, I just can't smell it, not nearly as well. So I always like to get the 3-wick ones. But the other candle I got, another fall scent of course, is called A Day at the Cafe. And this one's basically a coffee scent. There was another coffee scent that I looked at and thought about getting, but this one's more of a coffee latte, more caramelly type of coffee, I guess. Rich cold brew coffee, frothed milk, sweet caramel syrup. Those are all of the main ingredients of the scent. That's the type of coffee I like. I don't like just plain black coffee. I like more of a latte. So, love this candle. It smells so good, and it has this beautiful design on the lid with these gorgeous golden leaves. This will be perfect to put me even more in the mood for fall while reading these thrillers. Gotta get a fall candle for Summerween. You just have to. I did also finish reading Not Quite Dead Yet by Holly Jackson. I ended up reading this 3.5 stars. I did like it. I feel like it was an entertaining read. I had a good time, but it wasn't my favorite. It was fun though. It is an adult thriller, but it read very, very young adult to me. And I thought the whole time reading that it was a young adult thriller. And at the beginning, I thought it seemed like our main character, Jet, was a teenager when she was actually an almost 30-year-old woman. Her maturity, the dialogue, the way she acted just read a lot younger. So I was surprised after finishing this to see it is in fact an adult thriller. I think it's the first adult book that Holly Jackson has written. With that being said, I feel like this book wasn't really scary. I wanted it to be scarier, and there were a couple things I talked about before with like animals that I found a little bit disturbing or like creeped me out in a good way. That's what you want in a thriller. But I don't know that it was supposed to be as scary as I found it. I think that might have just been me. So this book really wasn't very creepy or scary. I did like the premise. I thought it was very unique. I thought it was fun. It was a cool twist on a murder mystery. However, I don't think in general I love murder mysteries, because the whole idea of knowing someone has died or is going to die and all the suspense is based around who did it, I feel like just is not enough suspense for me. So I get a little bit bored with that format. I think this is the first murder mystery I've read, and so I didn't really realize that until I was reading this book. But it was fun, it was good, so I am glad I read it. And with finishing this book, I did check off 2 more of the Summerween prompts. One of which is read an author who is new to me. I've never read another book by Holly Jackson, so I completed that prompt with this book. And then to read a horror or thriller book, we checked that one off as well. I went ahead and started the next book, Read Between the Lies by Jessie Sutanto. This one was very kindly sent to me by the publisher, a finished copy, so I've been wanting to get to this. It's a very short book, less than 300 pages. This is a thriller. It was released earlier this year, but the book does take place in 2020. It's going on during the COVID pandemic. We're following Fern, who has always wanted to be a published author, and she seems to be, I'm 50 pages in, but she seems to be very negative and kind of blame a lot of the things that haven't gotten her way in life on her high school bully, Haven, even though she graduated 10 years ago and they have not seen each other since then. But what's going to happen in the book, the premise of it, the plot, not a spoiler, Fern does get to become a published author for her debut novel, But at the same time, so does Haven. So they're gonna end up in the same debut author group. There's a lot of jealousy, obsession, and that's where the dark, twisty thriller part of this comes in. The book blurb said that it's not entirely clear who's the villain and who's the victim, which makes me wonder, especially with Fern's kind of negative, blaming attitude, if even though we're following her and getting glimpses of her present and her past, if perhaps she's not a reliable narrator, which I think is pretty cool. I've seen a lot of people say they didn't like the main character in this book because she's just unlikable, but if she's being presented as an unreliable narrator, I think that's pretty cool. You're not meant to like the main character. So I'm only 50 pages in. It's a pretty quick book to read, but I'm gonna go keep reading. It's been a few days and I did finish reading Read Between the Lies by Jessie Q. Sutanto. This was a very quick read, very easy to get through. That's why I didn't really update again since starting it, because it's less than 300 pages. So I got through this very quickly. I did end up rating this 2.5 stars. So it was not my favorite, but it did keep me reading. There were things I liked about it. I will say this did not at all feel like a thriller to me. I would describe this as a contemporary fiction. It discusses topics like bullying and social media, cancel culture. We get insight into the publishing industry, but there's nothing that I would consider a thriller. We have a plot twist kind of at the very, very end, but even that I feel like wasn't a thriller. It was something dramatic that happened, something kind of crazy, but not a thriller. The first half of this book was very slow. It did pick up more in the second half. More things were happening, but I still didn't feel like there was that much suspense or much payoff for the buildup that we had and the anticipation that I had while reading. We follow Fern's perspective the entire time, and a lot of the book is focused on Haven, her high school bully. I think this book would have come across a lot more suspenseful, had more conflict if we had also gotten Haven's perspective, because then you'd be kind of going back and forth wondering about how there's these two sides to the story. And that is a big point that the author, I think, was trying to make, is that things aren't black and white. It's not always clear who's the victim, who's the villain, or if you can even describe one person as each. Life is typically more complicated than that. I think I mentioned when I started the book that Fern is a very unlikable character. It seemed like she might be an unreliable narrator, and so I think having not just her perspective and being in her negative mindset the whole book would have been beneficial, more interesting, really added to the narrative of it not being clear who's in the right or wrong. But I do understand why the character was unlikable. It was part of the plot, so it didn't bother me that she was kind of judgmental, had very much a victim mindset, felt like everyone was against her. There was a quote I wrote down from about halfway through the book that said, "I feel like the entire world is looking at me, judging." And I feel like that describes Fern's character and her mindset throughout the book very well. She just constantly felt like anything bad that happened to her was because someone was out to get her, which again can feel very negative to be reading about and be in her head the whole time, and kind of frustrating because she seemed immature. She was drawing these nonsensical conclusions that led to her making unwise decisions throughout the whole book. But again, it was part of the point that the author was making. Overall, It was interesting. I thought the author made some good points, but I thought it could have been better executed. I did like learning more about the publishing industry, kind of gaining that through Fern's experience as a debut author. So that was neat to see. I liked that aspect of the story probably the most. And with this book, we did complete some more of the Summerween reading challenge prompts. One being read a book with a pink cover. This one has a lot of red, purple, but also pink on it. And then the only other prompt of the challenge was to read a book under 250 pages. I don't have a book, definitely not a thriller, that's under 250 pages, but this one is only about 280. So for my purposes of doing this challenge, I am going to count this as completing that last prompt. We'll just change it to read a book under 300 pages. Even though we have completed all of the Summerween prompts, I do have one more book left for this reading vlog, one more thriller. This is All the Colors of the Dark by Chris Whittaker. I already started this. I'm 150 pages in. It is about 600 pages, maybe a little bit less. This is a thick, long book. I'm loving it so far. I honestly don't read a lot of historical fiction. I tried reading The Nightingale, wasn't a fan. I've tried reading some literary fiction. I read A Man Called Uva, also was not a fan of that. So I kind of striked out a lot with those genres and tend to avoid them. Not that I think I wouldn't like a book in those genres per se, but I just haven't had luck with them in the past. So reading this book, I was skeptical going into it because it is historical fiction. It does have that very lyrical writing style that you see in literary fiction, but I am loving it so far. I know I'm only a small portion of the way through, but this has been such a page turner so far. Compared with the other two books I've read in this reading vlog, I feel like this one's gonna be my favorite by far. Even though this one fits into other genres, I do feel like this one is the most compelling thriller out of all the three books that I've read in this video. And that could change, but so far, this is going very, very well. This book is set in the 1970s. It's taking place shortly after the Vietnam War. And the book starts off following a boy named Patch. He's, I think, 13 years old. Fairly young, but on the very first page, we're told that later that day, he's going to be lying in the woods dying. So right off the bat, the book grabs your attention and pulls you in. Honestly, the way it was written was so beautiful. I'll read you just a little excerpt of the first page. Later that morning, when he lay dying in the woodland, he'd take that morning still and purse it till the colors ran, because he knew it could not have been so beautiful, that nothing was ever so beautiful in his life. And that is the very first paragraph that you read. It's written so well. Again, I don't read a lot of literary fiction or historical fiction, so it took me a minute to get into the story, the way it was written, the writing style, but not too long. And another thing I love about this book that made it so easy to get into, even though it has that very descriptive, beautiful writing that can take you a minute if you're not used to it, this book has extremely short chapters. So you feel like you're reading a ton as you're turning the page, because each chapter is only a few pages. Right now, I'm only this far into the book and I am on chapter 66. So there are over 200 chapters in this book. And I don't know if that's just me, I'm sure other people feel this way too. But even though I'm only on page 150, being on chapter 66 makes me feel like I've read so much, makes me want to keep reading, because it's so easy to say, I'll just read one more chapter, and it's only 2 or 3 pages. then you just keep going and you've read another 10 chapters. This book though, it's already so emotional. Like I said, we're following Patch, and this is a story about a serial killer. There are girls who are disappearing, girls who are dying in this town. We have a man in the woods, only about 15 pages into this book, who is trying to kidnap this young girl, and Patch steps in and attacks the man, tells the girl to run, and he's left there stabbed, and he disappears, and we don't know what happened. Is he gone? Did he die? Presumably the man took him. But that's how our story starts. It then kind of switches to following Saint, who is Patch's best friend. They're both kind of each other's only friend. They care so much for each other. There's definitely romance in this book, lots of feelings and love between these characters, and you can see that even with Patch being away, as Saint is trying to look for him and not giving up hope that her friend could still be alive. I finished, I think, part 3 last night, and I'm not going to explain any further because I don't want any spoilers, but I learned why this book has the title it does, and oh my goodness, that was powerful. All the colors of the dark. We kind of get a hint of that at the beginning, but just finding all this beauty in the darkness. And I'm not going to say any more than that, but I've been so surprised, so impressed so far. I did not have high expectations for this book, but I'm so glad I picked it up. I was just strolling through the library, didn't really know much about this book, had just heard the name, decided to pick it up, and I feel like those are some of the times that you find the most incredible reads, is when you pick up a book that you would have never picked up on your own. Like, I wouldn't have necessarily sought out reading this book, but now that it's in my hands and I'm reading it, I am so grateful that I am. Same thing with books I've read for book clubs, just things I wouldn't have, not that I wasn't interested in them, but there's so many books that go onto my TBR, things that sound interesting, and when you have all those books competing with each other, they're just books that I wouldn't have personally prioritized, and I'm so grateful that other people somehow got those books in my hands because I found some of my favorites that way. Let's keep reading. I just finished a 1-hour reading sprint of this book, and I managed to read 67 pages, which is a little bit more than I was expecting. I feel like I read about a page a minute, so I guess it's about what I thought. A little bit more though, I think, because of the short chapters in this book. I told you guys it makes it so easy to just read a lot quicker, with some of these chapters only being a page long, or 2 pages, or 3 pages. I'm still really enjoying All the Colors of the Dark. I am almost 2/3 of the way through the book now, so making really good progress. It has been more than a week of me filming this video at this point, but I'm gonna finish off the 3 books that I told you I would read. So we're finishing it up, even though it's taking a little bit longer than I thought. When I started this book, so much was happening at once. There was a lot of really thrilling stuff happening. It was perfect thriller, and I still am loving the book. But I will say at this point, kind of at the halfway point of the book, it's much more character driven. There's not so much exciting, thrilling stuff going on. There is still kind of a mystery going on throughout the book, but I feel like it's more so about how these traumatic and tragic events from the characters' childhoods are now affecting their lives throughout the rest of their lives, because a lot of time is passing in these books. Decades have passed so far. So plot-wise, it's moving slower, but the writing is beautiful. I'm already attached and wanting to know more about the characters, wanting to see how this continues to affect them. And there is still that element of mystery where I do want to know what happens. So I'm kind of hoping we have some closure and something big at the end of the book to really tie it all together. But I'm still liking it a lot, and I'm trusting the process even though it's more slow right now in the middle. I'm gonna go finish the last third of this book, and then I will give you my final review. I finished All the Colors of the Dark, and this book was incredible. Maybe a new favorite read of 2026. This blew my mind. The entire ending of the book, and by ending I mean like the last 100 pages, I was flipping the pages. I said at the beginning that this was a page turner, and it definitely stayed that way. Even though it was slower in the middle, that part and that character driven aspect of the novel just made the ending so much more impactful. There were all these ideas tied together. You cared so much more about learning the characters' backgrounds and what had happened to them and why they did the things they did at the end, because we had that slow section in the middle. So I was right to trust the process. But yeah, the whole last 100 pages, the entire time, this was my fave. I was just like in disbelief, staring at what I was reading. There were so many reveals. It definitely picked up. There was a lot happening, lots of twists, lots of things we find out that completely change your perception of a character or just add so much more to your understanding of them given other things you had learned about those characters earlier on in the book. We see their relationships with each other grow and change. This was just so beautiful. I don't know that I read a character-driven novel. I feel like a lot of times I seek out books that have a lot going on in terms of plot, which this one, you know, it still did, but it covered, I think, 40 years, 30 or 40 years. The book starts in the 1970s and ends in the 2000s. So we cover a lot of time in this book, but I thought this book was so compelling. I didn't say it yet, but I did rate this book 5 stars. I feel like we could kind of see that coming based on how I was feeling at the beginning, in the middle, and towards the end of this book. I absolutely loved it, and it's making me think that I should try to read more literary fiction and historical fiction books and step more into those genres that I don't typically read, because I love this one so much. So if you have any recommendations or great books in those genres that you think I would like, please comment them below and let me know. I'm glad we got to have a 5-star read in this video. Thank you so much for watching. I had a great time getting into the fall summerween mood and reading some thrillers, because that's another genre that I don't typically pick up. But thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe, and I will see you in my next video.